What is happening? I think, yeah, we're live. So welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Glad to have everyone here. Luke, it's always good to see you. Sorry I had to cancel on you last week, but I remember talking to you about it, but I also remembered when I reached out to you that I was going to get with you during the week, and the week just went on,
It
and
always does.
I'm just a servant to my calendar, and it's not until I actually am in view of a next meeting. Like I need to put in my calendar to review like the next couple of weeks of meetings so I can just see things that are coming. Otherwise, I just see them like 12 hours in advance because I'm wanting to make sure. So that's my bad. Sorry about that. You know how
No,
much I
not.
hate being the person to cancel things and how much I love it with you being you.
It's always one of those things where it's like the introvert that doesn't want to actually go to the party sometimes, and like the party host ends up canceling last minute, and they're like, oh,
Yeah, you're like looking around like, what's going
you're
on?
like you're like, hey, I can do some work now here. This works out well, so we're
You're
gonna
all
do it.
dressed up, you're ready to go, and it canceled. The good thing is I've gotten to the
Right,
point where it's not
right.
the same day. It's at least the day before.
Oh my
Now, it might
gosh,
be the
yeah.
evening of the day before, but still the day before. All right, so a lot of things are going on. Most recently, yesterday, in fact, I think I have something. I'll pull it up on the screen here in a second. The settlement for Anywhere, Remax, and let me just pull up Inman. Uh, the settlements were approved. So that really, yeah, judge approves. Keller Williams. Let me go ahead and just share my screen. Oops. We're going to share my screen in a second because now I have to log in. Everything requires a login, Luke.
Of course.
Have you gone
Dang
to
it.
Whole Foods and actually have them scan your palm? Have you done that yet? Did you know they have
No,
you can
I
tie Whole Foods to your Amazon account, your Amazon Prime account, and by doing that, you can go there and you can do self checkout, and it can scan your palm. So instead of having to pull out your wallet and such, you can just put your hand up on it. It scans your palm, and it'll pay for it. I haven't
oh
done it
yeah.
yet, just because it takes too long to get connected. But okay, so here's what we got.
I also I have something on that before or
Okay, let's go
before we
back.
go through. Remind me.
No, let's talk about it now.
Okay,
Otherwise,
so
we'll forget.
along those lines, they you know the just shop and go things that they
Yeah,
were doing.
yeah.
Okay, so
The
they they,
carts.
they
Yeah.
canceled those. They canceled all of that. Turns out it was just a bunch of Indians watching cameras, calculating people's carts and putting things in.
Okay, so I thought it had an RF code on each of the products, and it goes through and it just like tallies it all. That's not the case, huh?
We all thought, and everybody thought, and Amazon's competition thought that it was like this
And
AI
no,
algorithm, everything just
it
going.
was a
Nope,
boiler room
just a
back in
massive
India.
room full of
Yeah,
Indians, just calculating, watching people, following people around, adding
putting
people's
stuff in
carts
their
up.
part, and that's well. What's interesting about that, Luke, is that you have to look at the cost of labor. And
Right,
this really goes into Southern California. They just raised the minimum wage for fast food workers to $20 an hour.
right.
And right now, it's cheaper to have hired someone from India, given given the cost of labor there. Well, you and I both have virtual assistants out of the Philippines, so it relates really well to us.
Right.
It's cheaper for them to do that for them to than to them to pay for the technology to be created to run that. So wrap your mind around that one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to
All right.
judge approves Keller Williams Anywhere and Remax settlements. So that just happened on Thursday, paving the way to now this has nothing to do with the NAR. one, which is the big one that's really kind of just changing things, but it does pave the way for the people who first opted in to the settlement. So what's interesting to me, and this is something that you and I have been talking about, the it according to the NAR, the home buyers, their annual survey, 41% of all buyers signed a buyer representation agreement. Now, it's my understanding that there are only 19 states out of the 50 that have legal requirements for written buyer representation agreements. So, one could surmise either A, nearly half of all the transactions for buyers are being done in 19 states, which I don't think is happening, or B, buyer representation is already happening in states regardless if there's a legal requirement or not. Now, when that's happening, my personal belief is it's being that most of the time buyer representation agreements are being signed at the time an offer is being written, whereas the big thing for the NAR announcement is that buyer representation agreements now have to be signed before they begin providing services or showing properties. So there's still a little bit of a mix on there, but one of the things I just say is that if take comfort in knowing if you're afraid, if this is something new coming to your sake, take solace in the fact that signed buyer representation agreements, they are not new. They've been around for a long time. I've been familiarized with them since the 90s in Salt Lake City, Utah. And if other states are living with it and conducting business with it, then I think the logic would say that no other state are going to be, the sky's not going to fall in other states because it hasn't fallen in other states. I don't want to discount the fear that people have, because there is a lot of, anything new is going to be fearful. Here's what I'm finding though. The big thing is, and it's not going to be a shock to you, articulating your value proposition, number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, not only articulating your value, but actually having the confidence to charge a commission and stand by and defend your worth for that commission. So those are the big two challenges that I see that a lot of agents are having. What's interesting is that those aren't challenges those are the same challenges that were here last year. They're here today. They've evolved. They've merged into something different. But this comes into what I want to share with you is the big thing about value. When you start looking at, who was it that said it? I think it's Hormozy. Is it Alex Hormozy that said when you something along those lines? You shared the quote with me. It's in his book that you actually like $1 Million. What is it? What was his book? Do you remember?
$1 Million Offers.
$1 Million Offers. Pretty much says, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't got the direct quote, is that if you compare something side by side and there's no unique difference between a product or service, then the lowest price is always going to prevail, right? Illustrating that you can only increase value by increasing the perceived value of the goods and services being provided, or if they're identical, you have to lower the price. So I think that agents have gotten too accustomed to just lowering the price, especially when it comes to buyers. And now, as we look at the data that people do business with, who they know, like, and trust, comes into your realm, is that you need to utilize these various different platforms where all of these people are coming to establish your reputation, to become an influencer, to become an influencer at a local level, right? I mean, what are you seeing?
I like what you're commenting on that. For somebody to come in and be able to like justify their worth, because so many of those folks, like, they just defaulted to like, my services are free, and didn't have to like articulate what their how they were getting paid or anything of the such. So I haven't really, it has not really been like a sky is falling type situation from like the conversations that I'm having. it's kind of like, well, we don't know type of a deal, and business as usual. And so, from my point of view, it's anytime there is change, that's always going to create opportunities, different angles, and you know, if you're going back to what you're saying about like just building a brand and building value, like when doing that, like the price and like what you're charging typically is not a topic of conversation. Like they've already, for the most part, decided at that point that they want to do work, they want to work with that person. I mean, at least that's how I operate. And as long as like the cost is not like so absurdly different, like I can tell you many times I've made a choice to like, I'm going to work with this person, and then come to find out they want like 10 times what I was originally thinking. I was like, well, fuck, if they, sorry, um
Beep.
beep, family friendly. um you know I'm going to come out, and I'm happy to, and majority of the time, like I ended up still, working with that person, even though it was 10 times what I was originally thinking.
You know, one of the things I'm hearing often, these little catchphrases that in absence of value, there's only price. Those types of things. And what I typically I typically keep my mouth shut depending on who's saying it, but it's not an accurate assessment. It's not an accurate thing to say, because in order to determine value, you have to know two things. You have to know, what do you get? What is the product? What is the service that you're getting? Number one, and then number two, what is the price that's being charged? Okay, those are the two things that need to be identified in order for somebody to determine value. You can't just say that here's the price and not knowing what you're getting. That's not going to get value. You can't just say here's a bundle of services and here's a bundle of products without having a price. You're not going to be able to determine value by that. So when people say that in absence of price, there's only value, that's an inaccurate way of saying something. And they need to fix that. I understand the whole premise behind it, but you can't determine value without the two variables. It's an incomplete equation if you don't have those two variables. And it's interesting, that's something that has to be taught. And it has to be taught because these little sayings about in absence of value, there's only price, or, there's a lot of different ones. It'll come to my mind. There's another one that I just heard recently that I'm like, no, that's not right. But,
And this makes me think of like from a consumer standpoint too. Like it's like it has you're saying about how how things need to be taught, and that is you see this. I see situations like this play out, and like the questions that consumers are asking, and a lot of times it has like they don't know what to ask, right? So if like somebody's going to a lender, they're like, what's the rate? Because they don't know the right questions to ask to determine. So there's that level of like education and explanation of from the professional standpoint of like, hey, this is what you get. This is how it works. This is what that process looks like. Here's the and this is how. So it's like, and in the realm of like when it comes to like commissions and what people are going to be charging for their services, like that's like just an educational process of like they don't know what to ask other than what do you charge, right?
well, let's look at this. Let's put a real estate agent next to a real estate agent, comparing it. Besides our outfits and besides the way that we dress,
Right.
what is it that's uniquely different of an agent? Let's talk about buying process. Okay, they each have to have a license. Okay, they each have to align with a real estate company. Now, the real estate company, where they're at in the market, that matters. Who you align with matters. Are you with an independent boutique that nobody knows of, or are we with you a national brand that has brand penetration into a consumer? So that plays. So that'll have a play into it. But as far as what a real estate agent can offer, I can show you houses. Okay, So can this guy. I have a lockbox key. Okay, so does this guy. I can give you MLS printouts. Okay, not sure how relevant that is, but okay, so can this guy. In fact, 51% of all buyers now, they find the homes themselves. So this whole thing that I'm going to help you find a home, that's only half right. But I've always had my talk track saying 10% of what I do is helping you find a home. 90% of what I do is helping you get what you want when you want in a timely manner and cover all the bases. So I've always called myself, actually not now, when I was in production, I would always reframe something to the consumer and say, I am your chief of staff.
Right.
I don't make the decisions, but I'm the one who understands what everything is going on. And I come to you with, here's the scenario, here's what's happening, here's my recommendation, what do you want to do? Right. And I find that when you do those, remember when we were, when you and I first met, and we were actually in sales, and people started hearing me using the parallel form of, this is a lot like being accused of a crime, or imagine if you're hiring an attorney, how I paralleled it with certain things. So I do the same thing when I want to make sure I parallel something into something that people know. Mm-hmm. But I lost my train of thought on that one, so I'm going to have to finish that when we come back. What was I saying?
Yeah,
where was I going before that rant?
You took me off course too. I was like, my mind started going.
I was going here, and then I went, okay, let's go over here and spend some time, and I came back. It'll come back. How long has it been since you've heard me say preview property? That everybody should preview property, everybody should focus on a local area. How long have you heard me say that?
It's been probably a couple months, I think. I mean, there's been some.
No, since I've said that, but how long, going back years, have you heard me always say?
Yeah, that's been forever.
So here's the interesting thing. You're going to love this. I went and spoke at a large office. And after that, I was talking on the whole buyer thing. And then after that, I was talking just one-on-one with some newer agents. And I just shared my whole thought. I'm like, I get these questions, what's the number one thing that you should do as a new agent? And the first thing out of my mouth, I said, you need to preview property. Period, underline, highlight, capitalize, bold, italicize.
Yeah.
And first they've ever heard of it. And I said, and it's not because you have to have preview property. It's that in this day and age, you have to become a reporter of the market area. You need to report on the area of what's happening in real estate in the market that you choose. You've heard me talk about this.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, we were talking about side-by-side, right? Side-by-side agents. That's what we were talking about before I got off track. What's interesting, if you compare just the features of what a real estate agent does, those features are the same features with every other licensed real estate agent. But it's also true in the legal field with lawyers. It's also true with accountants. It's also true with doctors. Anyone who's a service provider, the features are going to be the same. The distinguishing difference is experience and knowledge and popularity. The people who actually end up doing that charge those high rates are typically the people who are the known influencers, the somewhat celebrities of their market. That demands a higher price. So I brought that up because I shared the whole concept of previewing 5 properties a day and then reporting on it as if you're a reporter, and then posting that on YouTube, and do 5 properties a day for 12 weeks. That'll turn into 300 videos. Can you imagine how many? I mean, could you imagine if anybody did 5 videos a day on an area, what that would do in the end of 3 months?
Yeah.
Nobody's ever done it. How long? I mean, I think this might have to be one of those things that I just, people do this in other, I can't say that nobody does it. There are people that do it, and these are the guys that you see that they claim that everyone looks at them as an overnight success. They don't see the work that went into it.
Right.
But it's very far and few between that you see someone who creates that much content. But the people who do create that much content, they are lead generation business taking machines. So I can't say that nobody does it. I can say that it's not a secret. The information's out there. You can do it, but people just choose not to. Instant gratification. There is none of that, and so I think that's why people won't do it.
It's hard to do something for an extended period of time and not see the type of results that you want, and stuff like that often is, one of those things where it could take, 400 videos of that 500 before.
You know what's interesting with that comment, Luke, is that I don't think it always used to be that way. Like we've talked about, you and I, we're Generation X, that we're kind of that last generation that had a work ethic, but yet we also understand technology. When you start looking at real estate and you look at the age demographic of the average real estate agent, they're typically older than us, which means that they should be more inclined with the work ethic and not so focused on the immediate gratification. So there's been some sort of change that has occurred, because it used to be, maybe now I'm thinking about it, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm giving too much credit to our generation, because the same can be said about cold calling, the same can be said about door knocking. We know that it is effective. It's not efficient, but we know that it is effective because it's a numbers game, and yet very, very, very few people will put in the time and effort, especially if even people with zero business will not put in the time and effort because of the activity. So maybe it's a me thing. Probably is. It's probably just.
Well, I mean, to be in this just kind of makes me think, like, today, like, we, sometimes you and I, like, we'll beat on that, like, work ethic type of stuff, but at the same time, like, there's different opportunities now. Like, there's literally kids at home playing video games,
It's true.
streaming on, like, Kick, making 50 grand a month.
It's true.
Right. And it's like, well, you don't tell me I need to go out and get a job and, like, work hard. Like I just made your salary last month.
But here's the thing though. They're working, but what they've done is they've turned their passion into the work. So when I was 19, 20, 21, I was running my own karate studio. It wasn't my karate studio, but I was the chief instructor, and I had a blast. It was so much fun. It wasn't going to work. Now, at the end of that, I made the mistake where I turned my passion into a job, and that really hurt my passion. So, live and learn on that. Be very, very careful of doing something that you love as a recreation and then turning it into your livelihood, because sometimes it will have the tendency to put a bad taste in your mouth on both of them.
Yes.
But yeah, I met a gentleman, really big, really high up in real estate. On the side, he runs a YouTube page, and he has like 75,000 followers, and he gets compensated by YouTube to a really decent monthly amount. He showed it to me. So, but you know what he does? He posts every single day. I asked him, getting started, what's that?
Is his channel on real estate stuff, or is it unrelated?
No, it's on cars.
Oh.
Yeah. But the thing is, I asked him the question. I'm like, what was it like getting started? Did you get a lot of action? He goes, no. And kind of the question was, what would you do then? What you know now? And he says, I wasn't posting enough. And so he's like, maybe I was posting once a week, like what we do. Well, maybe we're posting once every other week. He does it at least 4 or 5 times a week, and it's in his schedule, and it's something that he just does. And he records something, and it goes into production. So relating that to real estate, what would happen if you just posted every single day on a specific area in real estate.
Right.
Worst case scenario, you're going to have hundreds of videos that nobody's seen, but when you get a chance to meet with a buyer or seller, you're able to show it to them, and you've automatically become the neighborhood expert.
Amen.
Yeah. So we are at time, my brother. We are right at time. So everyone, thank you for attending. Luke, always a great time, and we will see you next week.
Rock and roll.
Bye.